The day the stars wept. The children were singing when the sky caught fire. On New Horizon Station, nestled in the rich, terraformed plains of the Vega 9 system, laughter echoed across the schoolyard. Mrs. Alira Tan, a third-grade teacher and former astrophysicist, had just finished explaining eclipses using a holographic star model. She remembered thinking how bright the children's eyes were, how curious, how hopeful. The alarm screamed 30 seconds later. Code Black. All civilians report to underground shelters immediately. This is not a drill. The words repeated in a cold, automated voice. Alira froze. There was no military installation here. No rebel activity. Vega 9 had been neutral since the expansion accords. Her mind reeled. Then she looked up. The sky was splitting open. Dozens of streaks, burning red against the pale blue heavens, rained down from orbit like angry comets. They weren't natural. They weren't meteorites. Orbital kinetic rods. No, she whispered. They wouldn't. The impact rocked the ground like a titan's roar. One of the rods hit the outer city wall. The force turned skyscrapers into dust clouds and blew apart entire residential blocks. Children screamed. She grabbed them, all of them, as many as she could, tiny arms clinging to her legs, small faces wet with terror. Downstairs, everyone to the shelter. Move! The school's emergency staircase was shaking, bricks falling from the ceiling, pipes bursting. She shoved the kids through the reinforced doors, slamming it shut behind them, just as another impact shattered the school's main tower. The lights flickered, then went black. Inside the shelter, 37 children clung to her in the dark. "Will we be okay?" whispered a girl named Hannah. Alira didn't answer. She pressed her hand to the steel door, feeling its heat rise. Above them, everything was dying. Across the stars, it wasn't just Vega 9. 12 colonies. Synchronized strikes. Total population losses estimated at 111 million, 77 million of them children under the age of 12. It was genocide. The Galactic Empire didn't bother to hide it. Hours later, a representative addressed the Unified Terran Council via quantum relay. His words were surgical. "Let this be a warning. Earth will not defy imperial sovereignty. Your next generation is forfeit. Accept annexation, or extinction follows." The council chamber fell silent. Some diplomats cried. Others stared in numb disbelief. The president of Earth, Malik Faraz, clenched his fist. The screen flickered, then went black. There was no negotiation. A week passed in global mourning. Mass graves were dug across the colonies. A million funerals streamed across the datasphere. Social media collapsed under the weight of grief. Memorial walls in every city overflowed with names and tiny photos. Handmade toys, stuffed animals, old lullabies. Protests turned to riots. Riots turned to rage. And beneath that rage, something ancient stirred. In a secure bunker beneath Antarctica, Admiral Evelyn Reyes stood alone in the blacksite archives. A woman approached her, civilian, unauthorized. Her eyes burned with fury. Blood stained her shirt. "I lost 3 children in that massacre," she said. "I want you to make them pay." "We all want that," Reyes said quietly. "No, you don't understand." The woman pulled something from her coat, a metal card, long forgotten. It had no markings except one phrase, burned into its face like a warning. "Project Boogeyman. Eyes only. Level X." Reyes went pale. "That project was sealed," she said. "Deemed inhumane. So was slaughtering 77 million children," the woman hissed. "Unseal it." Reyes stared at her, then slowly turned to the command console. 6 hours later, deep in Cryo Vault 7, a chamber hissed open. Fog spilled onto the steel floor. Inside, a man exhaled frost from his lungs. His body was covered in old scars and new data ports. His eyes blinked once, sharp as gunmetal. "Colonel Gabriel Rourke," Reyes said. "Codename Boogeyman. You've been reactivated." Rourke sat up slowly. "How many?" 77 million. Mostly children. A long silence. Then, without another word, the Boogeyman stood and began suiting up. From the shadows of Earth's past, something had awakened. And the Empire, so proud, so arrogant. They were about to learn that humanity's monsters weren't myths. They were real. And they were coming. Project Boogeyman. The briefing room was silent. Only the hum of old machinery echoed under the ice of Antarctica. Frost clung to the walls. Gabriel Rourke sat motionless, armor half-fastened, eyes fixed on the holoscreen. It played raw footage, unfiltered, unedited. He'd requested it that way. Children running, skies splitting, screams. The sound cut in and out, distorted by heat and panic, but he didn't flinch. Not once. Across from him, Admiral Reyes watched carefully. We tried diplomacy, sanctions, then negotiations. They ignored all of it. And then they dropped rods from orbit, Rourke said. His voice was low, dry as a blade being drawn. On playgrounds. Reyes nodded. They thought we wouldn't respond, that we didn't have the stomach for retaliation. They were right, he said coldly. You don't. He stood, locking the last plate of his matte black armor into place. The HUD flickered red. Project Boogeyman active. Clearance override granted. Primary directive, instill fear. Destabilize command structure. No limits. Where's the target? He asked. Reyes hesitated, then tapped the hologram. Zareth Prime. Outer Rim Imperial Hub. Not a military world, but that's the point. It's a command center. No civilians. Just brass. Rourke narrowed his eyes. You're sure? I vetted it myself. He grunted. Then I'm leaving in 20. She looked at him. Gabriel, we buried this project for a reason. You were the reason. I told you then, he said, turning to leave. I'm only a monster when you need one. Zareth Prime, for days later. The Boogeyman arrived silently. The Whisper, a Black Ops infiltration ship, had no heat signature, no transponder, and no AI. He didn't trust machines to guide his path. Only instinct. Only vengeance. He landed outside the capital city of Vor. Imperial marshals patrolled the walls, confident in their shield grids and orbital scans. They had no idea what had slipped past their defenses. That night, he moved like smoke. One by one, watchtowers went dark. Then the communications hub failed. Then the barracks ignited, internal from the oxygen vents. He left no bodies in the open. Only blood. Only symbols, 3 claw marks, slashed into walls or carved into helmets. A mark from Earth's deepest psychological warfare programs. It meant, he is here. By the time the planetary governor issued a lockdown, half the command center was gone. Panic spread faster than any virus. Colonel Trinax, an Empire War veteran of 30 campaigns, locked himself in the central citadel with 36 guards. He's just a human, Trinax barked. We are the Galactic Empire. We do not fear primitives. Outside, the lights flickered. Inside, the guards turned their weapons toward every shadow. Something thudded against the main gate. Once, twice, silence. Then the power died. All cameras cut to static. What followed was not recorded, only reconstructed. Screams, gunfire, doors slamming. One by one, the heartbeats stopped, except one. Rourke dragged Trinax by the throat across the marble floor, blood streaking behind them. The general coughed, sputtered, trembling. Who are you? Rourke said nothing. He simply dropped a small data chip onto the floor. It projected the casualty numbers. 77,003,671. No trial. Trinax whispered, You're not worth the ink. A soft snap echoed through the empty palace. By the time Imperial reinforcements arrived, Rourke was gone. All that remained was a message carved into the wall above the bodies. You slaughtered our future. Now we come for yours. Earth. On board the Whisper, Rourke watched the growing list of Imperial systems in chaos. His mission had begun, and he wouldn't stop. Not until the stars bled fear at the name humanity again. Project BabaYaga. The Siberian wind howled through the ruins of old Chernobyl, sweeping snow across jagged metal skeletons. The Earth had long since moved on from this place, left it to ghosts and ash. But one ghost had never left. Anya Morozova sat cross-legged on the cold floor of a rusting bunker, eyes closed, heart silent. Her pulse didn't rise when the old steel doors groaned open. She already knew who had come. I didn't think they'd send you, she said, still not opening her eyes. Gabriel Rourke stepped into the room like a shadow reborn. The snow didn't dare follow him. They didn't, he replied. I volunteered. Anya opened her eyes. Ice blue, sharp enough to cut a man's soul. I told him I was finished. I buried that name. He stepped closer, saying nothing. 77 million, they said, she continued. Is that number true? Gabriel nodded. Children. He nodded again. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply stood, calm and mechanical. Where? Sarian. One of the architects is hosting a military summit there. High command. Security is tight. She tilted her head. Why didn't you take the job? I don't do dances, Gabriel said flatly. But you were always better at the quiet work. Anya turned toward a rusted steel locker. She opened it, revealing a slender case with no markings. Her fingers traced it like a violin. Do you remember what they used to call me? She asked. Gabriel nodded. BabaYaga, the witch in the dark, the one they tell stories about to scare their children. A thin smile ghosted across her lips. Let's remind them why. Sarian, 2 nights later. The Imperial summit glittered like a diamond in the void. The palace city floated on engineered platforms above the gas giant's clouds, its towers wrapped in golden alloy. Each guest arrived in ornate carriers, escorted by fleets of drones. The upper echelons of the empire laughed, toasted, congratulated themselves on decisive population control. They dined on alien delicacies, spoke of Earth as a nuisance soon to be resolved. None of them noticed the servant with no name. Anya moved through them as invisible as vapor, dressed in standard servant robes, her synthetic mask rendering her facial patterns untraceable. She poured drinks, collected plates, listened. She counted 14 high-ranking officers involved in the Vega 9 strikes. They would all die before sunrise. The first to fall was Admiral Kess. Anya cornered him in a side corridor, whispering his name like a ghost. He turned, confused, then choked as a thin wire slid across his throat, quiet as silk. She caught his body, laid it down gently, and removed his eye for retinal access. No alarms, no alerts. The second was poisoned. The third was found suspended in a decorative water column, his limbs folded like origami. Each kill a message. Each body discovered a little too late. By the time the guests realized something was wrong, the palace descended into panic. Security bots scanned faces. Officers screamed orders. Servants were rounded up, interrogated, beaten. Still, Anya was gone, or so they thought. In the Grand Chamber, as General Dravix raised a toast to unshakable imperial order, the chandelier above him began to sway. Then crash. He never saw her drop from the ceiling. She landed behind him, blade already out. He spun, eyes wide. You. She plunged the blade into his throat before he finished. For every child, she whispered. Guards opened fire, but their bullets passed through a shimmer. She was already gone, weaving between pillars, vanishing into the rafters. Panic turned to chaos. Fire alarms. Lockdowns. Command collapses. By the time Sarian's fleet arrived to assist, 15 dead commanders lay across the palace, each branded with a tiny Earth sigil burned into their chests. On board her extraction pod, Anya removed her mask and let the wind of re-entry whistle past. Gabriel's voice crackled through her comm. Clean work. Was it? She asked softly. You gave the children a voice. There was silence between them. Then she said, they'll send the Death Guard next. We're forcing their hand. Gabriel's voice was steel. Then we make sure they regret lifting it. 2 ghosts. 2 legends. Now awake, now angry. And the Empire had nowhere left to hide. Vengeance Protocol. Above the shattered moons of Colares, the Ascendant will hover like a dying god. A mobile command citadel, half a moon in size, it pulsed with Empire-born power, shielded by fleets, fortified with dreadnought guns, protected by 1,000 years of fear. It was also the last place the Empire thought they'd be vulnerable. Until now. Inside the human dreadnought Vigilant Wrath, Admiral Reyes stood at the helm, her face etched with cold resolve. Holographic battle maps glowed red and orange. "This is a suicide run," her second-in-command murmured. Reyes didn't look away from the screen. "It's not a run. It's a distraction." On cue, the fleet engaged. Dozens of Earth warships surged forward, lighting up the darkness with rail cannons and missile storms. The Empire responded in kind, descending with brutal efficiency. It was a bloodbath, and exactly what Earth needed. Within a small stealth pod coated in black nullite, Gabriel Rourke and Anya Morozova drifted silently toward the underside of the Ascendant Will, bypassing all detection. Inside, Anya sat cross-legged, sharpening her blade. Gabriel loaded a specialized rail pistol with anti-psionic rounds. He looked at her. "Last chance to back out." Anya smiled without warmth. "I came this far for the children. I'll finish it for their ghosts." They sealed helmets, nodded once, then breached the beast. The inside of the Ascendant was a city of circuits and corruption. Massive data towers loomed like temples. Mechs patrolled halls of titanium and gold. Human prisoners, abducted from fringe colonies, were strung up in stasis as test subjects. It was no longer just vengeance. It was confirmation. The Empire had to fall. Gabriel moved like a phantom, disabling guard stations with EMP knives and neural scramblers. Anya climbed through vents, left silent bodies in her wake, and planted explosives along the central reactor lines. The target, Emperor Varaxis himself, the last architect of the genocide, the one who signed the Oblivion Protocol, the planned destruction of Earth via stellar implosion bomb, hidden aboard the Ascendant Will. Time was running out. In the throne chamber, Varaxis stood alone, surrounded by elite cybernetic guardians, his death guard. He was more machine than flesh now, suspended in a gravity-null field, a serpent of metal and voice. "I know you're here, monsters of Earth," he spoke into the silence. "Come then, let your myths die with you." The doors exploded inward. Gabriel and Anya entered side by side, weapons drawn. Varaxis grinned. The Death Guard attacked. The battle was chaos incarnate. Gabriel tore through enhanced armor with anti-tank rounds and brute precision. His body, long pushed past human limits, moved like living war. Bones cracked, circuits sparked, metal screamed. Anya danced between shadows, blades flashing, blood splattering. She stabbed eyes, severed spines, vanished, reappeared. A ghost of fury and fire. Together, they reached the throne. Varaxis raised a psionic barrier, tried to melt their minds. Anya winced, but endured. Gabriel roared through it, gritting his teeth. "You think Earth fears death?" he growled. "We were born in it." And he fired a rail round straight through Varaxis' skull. The Emperor's body shattered, twitching cables, burnt circuits, collapsing like the lies he had built. Alarm screamed. The bomb was armed. They had 6 minutes before the Ascendant will collapse into a synthetic black hole, annihilating Earth from afar. Anya dove into the reactor core, overriding the control codes while Gabriel uploaded a virus to corrupt the Empire's AI command structure. "Done," she panted. "But we need to go. Now." They ran, barely escaping through an evac tube as the Citadel began to implode. Behind them, the Ascendant will fractured in slow motion, molten metal spiraling into space, engines detonating in a final, brilliant burst. Earth was safe. The Empire was leaderless. The message was clear. 1 week later, 1 million humans gathered in silence. The names of 77,003,671 children floated in white light across the skies of Earth. Cities paused. Ships stopped moving. For once, the galaxy listened. At the memorial, Gabriel and Anya stood side by side, cloaked in shadow, saying nothing. They weren't there for medals. They were there for the dead, for the ones who never got to grow up, for the reason they became monsters. From that day forward, no empire dared harm Earth again, because somewhere, out there in the dark, the Boogeyman and BabaYaga still watched, and they never forgot.